Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex, as per usual. Joining me are my two co-hosts, Noble.
Hello.
And Hugh.
Hello.
I was trying really hard at something to think of. Shadow Assassin. That's what I was doing. Shadow Assassin. Woo! I blanked in the moment. But,
So in case you can't tell, today is Patch Notes Day for us. Today is Tuesday, March 30th for us. So we haven't gotten to play with any of the patch. No. The patch isn't out yet, but we've seen all the notes. By the time this episode goes up, the patch will be live. But I think it's time for us to talk about this absolutely massive patch 2.5 change. I mean, this is like, I dare to say that this is probably the largest patch Legends of Runeterra has ever seen.
Yeah,
at least as far as meta implications go. It might not be the most number of changed cards, but maybe the beta to release patch was a little bigger. They changed a lot of cards in that patch, but it was a lot of give this common an extra power and a lot less meta defining changes.
Yeah, totally. The entire community is like a recovering smoker. Very grateful for the patch.
Wow,
that's a good one.
Was really
did you come up with that
just now? Seconds ago.
Okay,
that's
actually,
pretty good. Yeah,
that's
that was
bad.
off the top of your head. That was a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think it's time to just dive right in.
Yeah, no,
this
for
patch.
sure. So the first change we will be talking about is the change to Twisted Fate.
Long time coming for a lot of people for this one.
And it's not impactful at all.
This part of the change isn't that impactful.
This particular change is just okay.
Yeah, a lot of what we expected was they were gonna up his level up condition from 8 cards to 10 cards.
Yeah, we talked quite a bit about what we thought the TF changes might be last week, right? And we were all wrong.
I mean, we were pretty close.
We were close.
We said 8 to
Without
10,
further
but
ado, let's tell them what it is.
It's 8 to 9 instead of 8 to 10.
Yeah. So the only nerf to Twisted Fate is now, in order to level up, you have to draw 9 cards. Yes, see you draw 9 plus cards instead of 8. I was pretty surprised when I read that, especially at the very top of the patch notes. I was a little worried. I was like, wait a second. 8 to 9? That's it?
I was so relieved. I was like, my boy, he's still alive.
He lives to see another day.
You know what draws a card? Shadow Assassin.
So I'm pretty happy that TF got away.
Got away clean. My boy
Made
got
out
away
like a bandit.
Absolutely.
Never lost a fair game.
He's never played one either. And he still might not. I think that I'm very happy. I think that the Twisted Fate nerf, and I think we should couple in the pick a card nerf here because I think it's very important. Yeah, maybe you should read the pick a card nerf real quick as well.
They changed his champ spell, pick a card, from 3 mana, shuffle in a card, draw 3 fleeting at next turn, to 2 mana, shuffle in a card, draw 2 fleeting next turn.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty hefty nerf.
Yeah. So first off, they increased the number of cards you have to draw and then decreased the best way to flip him. Right. I think pick a card was the best way to flip him. Maybe rummage, but it's pretty close.
I mean, when you dropped your TF and you blue carded and then you also got to pick a card and your opponent had to just sit there looking at it and just realize they couldn't kill it.
As soon as they passed and it didn't die after I'd pick a carded, it was going to 5 cards. In my head, I was like, this is flipped. As soon as you play the pick card, I was like, it's flipped. And then on my upkeep, I'd be like, oh, it didn't flip net. That's weird. Oh.
Rummage. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's just, I think that we are going to see a lot less transformed or flipped Twisted Fates now. And let's remember not too long ago, right, when TF Go Hard was the best deck, right? That deck really didn't transform Twisted Fate a whole lot.
Yeah,
it just played a really fair mid-rangey Twisted Fate that flipped sometimes, right? And it was a nice card to have in play because sometimes you would just be able to go salvage, or Twisted Fates pick a card, untap salvage,
or glimpse a blocker, untap salvage.
Yeah, stuff like that. But it wasn't great at transforming Twisted Fate, and
certainly not.
But Twisted Fate was just a really, really good mid-range card in that deck, and I think that we're going to see a lot more mid-range Twisted Fate in the future. I think that Twisted Fate is still going to see a lot of play after this nerf, even to the 9 cards, even to his champ spell, right? But like I'm pretty happy about that, honestly. I liked Twisted Fate, mid-rangey Twisted
got
Fate.
an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or-
Read me the Lulu changes, baby.
Wait a second.
Not yet. Next up, we've got Fiora. So they also nerfed Fiora. Which,
This is another big one.
yeah, it's a very big one.
Huge. This is way bigger than one extra card on Twisted Fate.
Yeah, Fiora is now a 3/2 instead of a 3/3, which is
I hate it.
Ground actually earth shattering for this card, I think.
I would rather her be a 2/3.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely
I think
not close.
I think that the champion Fiora is just like quite a bit worse than Laurent Protege now.
Yeah.
Like, like, and they're in the same region.
I mean, when it
They're
comes
the same
to
mana cost. Like he has one more stats technically, but like 2/4 challenger is I think a better body to be doing the Fiora thing with than a 3/2.
Oh, absolutely.
by a lot.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, he was already better at effectively eating multiple creatures than
Without
she was.
support.
yeah, and Fiora obviously has the I win the game text, which makes it good. But like, you know, how many? And there are games that you win with Fiora that you couldn't win without Fiora.
Yeah.
Right, where you eat 4 things and just barely squeak it by. But a lot of the time, if you've eaten 4 of your opponent's creatures with Fiora, you're usually winning anyway.
Yeah,
I would argue. So like, is Fiora? I guess I'll just ask the question: is Fiora dead? Like, are we ever going to play Fiora decks anymore?
Well, she's definitely dead if my opponent has a Mystic Shot.
All right, that's fair.
It's so the roughest thing about this change is that she can no longer realistically eat any creatures without support now. She used to be able to eat every 1-drop,
yeah,
and
she won't even flip now if
and
you eat a
several-
1 power thing twice. Like,
yeah, exactly. And like there are several 2-drops she could also eat. She just can't eat anything but a 1/1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think cards like Chain Vest are going to get a lot more. I think that this change pushes her towards being more all in because the toughness does not matter in that Freljord Fiora deck, or not nearly as much, right? If you're putting, if your Fiora is ending these games at like 7/7 with tough and like a mortal or whatever, the toughness does not matter nearly as much as it did in Fiora Shen, because since there are less ways to protect it, the toughness matters more, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's a bigger like part of the way that she's killing things. And I just don't think that. And so I kind of don't like that this pushes it more towards all in, but I get how that it was probably necessary.
Yeah, the Fiora Shen deck was just a little bit too. It was too consistent. I mean, like we talked about the fact that it had a really high win rate, and TF Fizz got a lot of hate because it had a kind of toxic play pattern, right? Where I have 0 mana, I'm going to put 9 power into play. I have 2 spell mana, I'm going to put 12. Whatever, how much power into play, right? Yeah. Or, okay, here's my Twisted Fate that's flipping on turn 5, right? Yeah. These are things that are like very easy to be like, wow, I just got annihilated by this completely unfair turn. And meanwhile, Fiora Shen, I would argue, had like a pretty healthy gameplay pattern. Like it was just playing good creatures and good spells and trying to win combats. And turns out it had just as high of a win rate without being nearly as apparently powerful, overpowered, right?
I do think it was getting targeted less than TF Fizz.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's like a big part of that. I also want to say real quick, part of what we get, and I love that Riot does this, that we didn't talk about, we kind of missed a little bit, and I wish I would have said it then, but whatever, is the metagame snapshot they gave us, which is like a little more different data than that Cosmic person posts every week, but they synced up. He made a cool post about it that was like, here's why these data are a little different. And it was just kind of the most played deck was Tron, which was Lysandra Trundle. Play rate 10.8%, 51.7% win rate, and then 10.6 and 9.5 for 10.6 and 9.5 for Twisted Fate Fizz and Fiora Shen, respectively, which both had an exactly 56.4% win rate, which is kind of weird.
That is kind of fun.
Exact same win rate. So I think the deck definitely needed to take a hit. It hits their metric for needing to nerf on win rate, which is over 55%, which is pretty reasonable. I think we could have theoretically nerfed a different card from this deck to bring it just a little bit down and then wait to see how the meta settles. But I understand people not wanting just like everyone to immediately flock to Fiora decks when TF Fizz gets banned. So
I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned that we're just going to take the Fiora out of our Fiora Shen decks and play some other champion that might just be better.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
if we just like swap our Fioras for Laurent Proteges or something.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we don't even need as many Challenger units, right? Like the deck already has like Screeching Dragons, and honestly, I've said before, I'll stick to it. Shen's way better in that deck than Fiora ever was.
You know who does a good Shen impression? Lulu.
Ooh,
We could be Luluing our Fleet Feather Trackers
you could play Lulu
and our
Shen.
River Shapers
It doesn't sound that bad, right? Like
and our Lauren Proteges.
yeah, or
Kill
maybe
them
just
a little.
like slap a Garen in there. I don't know. Like, you know,
Shyvana.
Shyvana
Just gotta-
might not be that bad. You know, there's a few reasonable options. Zed stands out as a totally
Also,
defensible option here.
People have talked about putting Jarvan, who Jarvan hit a buff. So let's keep going a little bit. I think the next card we have to talk about is Jarvan anyway.
Yeah, Fiora's like, I did want to spend a while talking about Fiora because I really do think this is a really big change, and I think that you're right. The Freljord Fiora decks are going to continue to play Fiora because the 1 toughness isn't going to hurt them as much, though it will hurt their consistency quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And then I'm curious to see where Fiora Shed decks go. Are they going to keep
absolutely.
playing Fiora? I'm not certain, but anyway, yeah, I think pretty happy to talk about Jarvan.
Yeah, so Jarvan, all he got was +1/+1. He is now a 6/4 instead of a 5/3.
I think that this is a pretty meaningful change.
I don't at all.
The amount of times that you like slammed your Jarvan, it did their biggest thing, and then they could either hush it or like Mystic Shot it, and it just like traded and it might not now is like, I think, pretty relevant.
I think that the change he needed was not +1/+1. I think it was either a mana cost change or I think it was mostly a mana cost change. I don't see this being impactful enough.
See?
I don't know. I've still got faith for Jarvan. I agree that this, I don't think, was the change that Jarvan needed to see more play. Because, like, he's already a 5/3 with barrier that's challenging a thing, right? Like, it wasn't that often that this 5 power wasn't killing the thing.
Yeah.
The 6/4, if it means it lives through more combats, that's going to be really good. And honestly, the games where Jarvan was good, like him being a 6/4, he's going to be much better, right? Like the games where your opponent just like opened with the Jarvan and they ate your biggest thing and you couldn't really do a lot about it, right? Like, and then you like, you know, had to go and block with some 3x.
I would
the
much
Jarvan
rather
later or
have
whatever.
I would much rather have Jarvan be a 5/5 than a 6/4.
I agree with that also.
Oh, same, yeah.
I think, especially with his level up condition requiring the
Survival.
requiring survival,
Yeah.
it makes a little more sense. I think that Jarvan's probably still not going to see play, probably, which still makes me a little sad because I
Definitely
still
a
think he's
try
really
and let
good.
go.
But
I don't want to make any. I don't want to say that necessarily just because the meta is
so
being
wide
so
open.
complete. Yeah, it's completely open. There's just this absurd power vacuum that's been created by the nerfing of the 3
Tier 0
biggest
decks.
Like the 3 best decks have just gotten. We'll get to the Aphelios nerf eventually, but
Oh,
Aphelios has been beaten
Gutted.
to death.
Oh yeah, he got annihilated this patch.
Yeah.
It's just not even. Yeah. Anyway.
So, Jarvan could end up, you know, filling this hole, I think. But like, I think it's going to be really basically. I think Jarvan's problem wasn't really his stats. It was mostly that he cost too much mana, I think. So like,
But making his body better relevant to his mana
cost
is
helps quite
does
a bit.
help that.
You know, +1/+1 is not an insignificant buff. Like there have been a lot of cards that have undergone, you know, -1 toughness or whatever, and then they go from great to really bad. You know, so like
absolutely.
+1/+1 is not to be underrated. I don't think. I do think that it is a pretty significant buff, and I think that you're probably going to see more Jarvan decks.
Yeah,
now
totally.
he's at least going to be more defensible choice. I hope.
Yeah. So next up we have Shyvana. They reverted the change from being a 4/4 back to a 3/4, but she now has Fury, which is, I think, better.
Is this a Is
Absolutely
this a buff?
better.
You
Yeah,
think this is a buff?
This card is impossible to ever trade with in combat because it attacks as a 5/6 and you block it with a 3/3, and then it goes up
Gosh.
to a 6/5.
Well, it
and
attacks
then-
as a 4/5, but
Oh, does it not get +2? Oh, it gives sorry. It
It's
attacks with a
+1/+1.
4/5.
Yeah.
And then block it with a 3/3. It goes back up to having 3 toughness because of Fury. And then basically, because of the +1/+1 and the Fury, it's getting +2 health every time you trade into it.
So it's just like you're just not going to be able to block it ever. I don't
Yeah.
think. Right. Like
I mean, like, I guess a 3/3 into a 3/3 works, but not if they have any trick, and it's like flipping soon. And
Is it Dragon Chow time? It's way better with Dragon Chow. We said Dragon Chow was pretty good in the past.
Yeah.
In these these Dragon decks
possible.
have been like way far away from playable.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this change is really going to make these Dragon decks good all of a sudden. But like, okay, does this change make Shyvana good? I guess.
I think it might only. So one thing, love this change, even if it's a nerf, because she was a dragon that didn't have fury. Like,
It was
she like
weird.
the only dragon that didn't have fury.
Well, important thing to note, her human side didn't have fury, which makes sense. Her dragon side has fury. It had fury.
It did not.
It did not?
None of the sides had fury.
Really?
It says right here, change added fury on the dragon side.
Oh, I could have sworn the dragon side did have fury. Okay,
Yeah,
I
but it,
stand
like,
corrected.
She just got big, so it kind of felt like she had fury.
Fury makes her way better with strafing strikes that are like her.
That's her champ spell, right?
No, that's
it's the
what
spell
she
she
creates
makes.
when she attacks.
Oh, yeah. What is her champ spell?
Confront.
Give an ally
Oh.
challenger permanently.
What a weird.
No, it's not permanently.
It is permanent.
It is?
It is.
It's
yeah.
3 mana burst. Of course, it's permanent.
I just thought the card's garbage. I don't know what it
Garbage,
says.
yes, but
card
it
is
is at least
garbage.
permanent. Yeah, we could play some like sick Shyvana, Renekton things where we have like our power turns always this 4 with a 3,
And then we're just like trying to play.
like single combats and concerted strikes, and
So our plan is like take turn 3 off, and then on turn 4 we're trying to play as Shyvana or this
or like
Renekton
curve
and eat
into it
something.
and like play exhausts. Like
I
she's really good
think
with exhausts.
the world
sounds
where
great.
we're playing a deck that plays a card that says 3 mana do mostly nothing is.
No, we're not playing that card.
Oh, okay.
We're like playing the other spells that give vulnerable.
Okay.
Yeah, we're playing the good ones
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
from the Renekton package. We're not trying to confront our Shyvana.
Yeah,
and
I was
just
going to
get
say,
in
if you're
there.
putting Confront in a deck, the deck's just not playable, probably.
That's
But who
probably
knows?
true.
You know what? The meta is being so ridiculously shaken up now.
You
That
could
could
put Grand
change.
Plaza in that deck. Might be good.
Who knows
never
what's
know.
Talking about taking turn 3 off, baby.
Did somebody say take turn 3 off?
So I think that's all we have to say about Shyvana.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I hope she's good. But if she is, it's going to be because of the power vacuum, not because of this change.
Yeah, the change will help. Don't get me wrong, but it's
I'm still not even sold the change will help. So
Next up, we have Lulu. She goes from a 2/3 to a 3/3, and I see Noble is very excited about
Noble,
this.
Noble's
It's so purple. What? That's what the whole.
all right.
Her followers are like, tastes purple, and her little thing is.
Oh, yeah,
purple
there's a lot
juice.
of purple.
Alex is a spike, therefore plays good decks, therefore never plays Lulu.
I have not yet ever put
All right,
Lulu in
let me
play.
tell you about Jinx Lulu, baby. Played this deck on stream. It was pretty cool. This nerf is good for my aggro deck that plays Lulu.
mean buff.
Yeah, buff. What did I say? I said good for it.
You said this nerf is real good
yes,
for my
this
aggro
buff,
deck.
This buff be good. This card now reminds me of. Can you guess what? Can you guess what champion I'm about to say?
I think I know
I've
the
already
answer,
told
so
him,
I
yeah.
won't cheat.
I
think she's like Zed, but like maybe better.
Wow, better than Zed.
Yeah, like she's like if you're putting her on a 1/1, she's 6 power when she attacks, which is as much as Zed. She doesn't die to Mystic Shot.
She grows her ally to 4/4.
Yeah. So if you're putting a 1/1, it's plus 3 power.
Yeah.
And like if you're putting on that on something with elusive or challenger, that's even better. Or even like quick attack or overwhelm. But
The biggest
those are hard
problem.
to
The
find
biggest
on
problem
1/1s.
was finding. The biggest problem was that Lulu couldn't attack that much.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
'Cause she was so small.
3/3s. Yeah.
Right. And with the Fiora nerf, so there's going to be a lot less Fiora. And I would argue that Lulu was not a good, like, I cannot even imagine playing a Lulu deck against Fiora. That just sounds horrid.
yeah, yikes.
Right. So Fiora nerf, I think, is a big deal for Lulu.
Yeah. Burblefish nerf,
Burblefish nerf,
probably good.
clearly a big deal for Lulu because she probably couldn't beat that deck ever either.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's bigger now maybe means she's going to be able to attack more profitably. I don't know. I can kind of get onto this hype train.
Yeah, so I have a couple things to say about this additionally. One, her flip size being a 4/4 goes from well statted at a 3/4 to like actually very good stats. And she's not that hard to flip because you want to support allies. If you're playing like random like Pixes and stuff, she can often flip the turn you play her. Like you need to have supported once when you attack with her for the first time. Because if you still have that support unit in play, that's 2 supports and then she flips.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, her flip side is like pretty powerful. And in one of the interviews, a developer was like, they're like, why didn't you make Lulu better? And he was like, Lulu is like really good. And I don't think that people, like in our testing, Lulu has been very good. It's a lot of stats. There's not a lot of buttons on that card because it's just a lot of raw stats. And I think that that's potentially good. And I think it was also suffered from Ionia being not great.
Yeah, that's just a big drawback to every Ionia champion is that their region is Ionia. But like
this card is good to put its trigger on Shadow Assassin.
That too. There's a lot of good things going on for Lulu here. Absolutely. I actually won't be shocked if Lulu ends up being good in this next patch, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. The next card up is pick a card. We already discussed that.
We said that it was unplayable now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I don't think we
we should talk about the actual card. Yeah, I don't think that this
I don't
playable.
think you're putting that card in your deck anymore.
I thought that the
old one wasn't playable.
The old one was unplayable for a very long time. I was proven wrong pretty sufficiently by Twisted Fate, like by it being so powerful at leveling Twisted Fate. And I'm still curious to see whether or not that card would have been good if Twisted Fate, like, I'm very curious to know if the Legends of Runeterra card Pick a Card would have been good outside of Twisted Fate, right? Because
I think yes.
Yeah, because it reads so bad, right? Like, I don't know. As a card game player, I read that card and I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Like 3 mana to take a card out of my hand and then draw 3 cards that are going to go away at the start of my next turn. Like I was just off it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of
be much better.
Yeah, there's a lot of exploits that actually make it much better than that, right? Like you can shuffle away cards that are being created, so you aren't actually losing a card, you know.
Spell mana.
The spell mana helps a lot. It turns out you actually can play 3 cards with fleeting most of the time. So, you know, I was thinking these like fair pick of cards that were bad, but you know, if you exploit it a little bit better, then it turns out to be pretty good. But you know, obviously now I think that there's no way, right? Like even if you play pick a card, shuffle away a created card, an ignition or whatever from Ballistic Bot or something, and then draw 2 cards during your next turn. Like, was that good enough? So like, it's the same price as Glimpse Beyond, but Glimpse Beyond seems much better.
The fact that this card now doesn't actually draw extra cards is
because
so
itself
massive.
Plus the shuffled card is 2 and it's drawing 2.
Yeah,
exactly. It just doesn't do anything. It's purely for the purpose of leveling Twisted Fate. Like
or like turning created cards into real cards on your next turn. I think
but
those are the
it's
only
not
2
even-
purposes.
it's
but
not
it's
even
not
that.
very good at that.
No, because the
it's
good part of that is getting rid of them so they're not real cards. And now
Permanent. It also doesn't get rid of them permanently. Like often you'll draw them again. And
Yeah,
I've definitely lost games just drawing some ignitions and being like, well,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
This card is now, I was really off of it, and I think it's not as good in the situations that we're used to pick a card being good at. It's kind of like a cantrip now, because it's kind of like Tormenting Voice from Magic, where you get to like put away this card and another bad card to do stuff. It doesn't putting the created card back in your deck putting the card back in your deck could potentially be something that you want to do. For example, I could be looking to put Suit Ups back in my deck. I could be looking to put a Commander Ledros that I don't want now but want later back in my deck. And that could be, this card is way, way better to cast on turn 3 to not waste mana now. Yeah. Because you're way more likely to be able to play both cards. It can get a card that's clogging up your hand that you're not going to cast for several turns back into your deck, and then hopefully you're going to draw the rest of your deck. It is worse at drawing the rest of your deck because it draws one less card. It's definitely a downgrade. Definitely not as good with Twisted Fate anymore. I think it's possible that it still sees play.
I think I'm going to disagree with you here. I just like the problem with pick a card already had to do a lot with the fact that if you're playing it on the middle turns, like you can't really choose what your turn is because you have to play the cards that you draw that turn, right? So like the biggest problem I've had with pick a card in the past and still have with this version is that when you play it, you don't really get to decide what your next turn is going to be, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's a big problem for me. I think that like, you know, like if I cast this on turn 3 or turn 4, like, yeah, I'm probably going to be able to play both the cards I draw, but like how much better is drawing these 2 cards and then playing them versus playing the 2 good cards that I like want to play on curve this turn or whatever, right? And I guess that you probably just aren't going to cast pick a card if you have a good next turn, right? But like, you know, the problem then that becomes, okay, I'm playing pick a card when I don't have a good turn next turn and then just trying to get there right? Like it feels like you're still going to have to do some work to make this card good more often than that, basically. So like we're going to have to be rummaging. We're going to have to be shuffling away bad cards. I don't think that there's really a way where this card can be that fair and end up being good, because you're only going to play it when you have a bad turn next turn, and then you're just going to hope that you get a good turn, and that's not going to happen that often.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say we can move on, but you just said like 5 things that I like disagree so strongly.
Oh yeah,
with
let's keep it
that,
going.
So first of all, you said when you cast pick a card, the old pick a card, the current unnerfed pick a card, your next turn is decided for you, and you have you don't really have much choice, and that's just
that ended
so
up being not
patently
true.
false. Like that's just not even vaguely true in my opinion, because
Just to rummage them away so often.
first of all, it's 3 cards. That's a lot of cards. There's a lot of choices you can make with 3 cards. Second of all, there's a lot of ways that cards you can't cast that are going to disappear at the end of the turn can still be used in the deck that this card goes in.
For what it's worth, I would like to clarify. I was talking about like fair pick a cards. And I do not think that is what the TF Fizz deck was doing. Like the TF Fizz deck had a really good plan for utilizing these cards it's drawing. And I think that without
that was a big part of the power of pick a card in that deck.
It was exploiting pick a card. And I think that without exploiting pick a card, it is very bad.
Sure. Okay. But I think that in a deck that is like built like so a deck that's playing pick a card is going to be pretty used to the idea that, hey, we're going to be drawing fleeting cards with our deck. Our deck's going to be drawing cards that will be disappearing. So I think just by design, you're just going to be used to the idea that like you're going to be building a deck that can handle an influx of cards that are going to be there for a single turn, and therefore you're going to have a plan for when you can't play those cards, because doing anything other than that would mean you've probably built a bad deck.
This is all pretty fair. I guess this is why I was so low on like pick a card, just the card in general, for such a long time. And it's because like I saw people put it in normal decks, and I think people, as soon as this TF Fizz deck, like I remember the TF Fizz deck, the Wiggly Burblefish thing, like coming onto the scene, and me being like, pick a card, really? Is this card actually good? Playing with it and being like, yes, this card's actually good. And then people were putting pick a card in other decks, and I remember vehemently being like, no, this is bad. Like pick a card is a bad card. You cannot just put this in your deck and expect it to be a good card. I stand by that. I think that the actual text on that card is bad. Like you have to exploit it. And I'm not sure that these decks are going like, basically you're still going to have to exploit pick a card now that it's 2 mana, draw 2. You had to in the past. It's going to be much worse because it's going to it's also much worse. The fact that it's not really going to be flipping your Twisted Fate anymore was a big part of the exploit in the past. Now that that's gone, like, are we just going to be drawing 2 and then rummaging them away? That's our backup plan. That's not even really that good either.
So I agree with old pick a card. You need to exploit it a little bit. I think now that it is 2 mana and draws 2 cards, that's just no longer true. I do think the card's
that's actually
bad
fair.
Now. I don't think the card's good. Finally, because now it is finally you're not even actually drawing cards. Yeah. It's parity. Like you use the card and shuffle away another card, and then you get 2 cards that are going to disappear. Like it's hard for me to imagine a world where that's good. It's possible, but it's really hard for me to picture a world where that is good. But it's only 2 cards that are fleeting. 2 fleeting cards are a lot easier to cast in a turn than 3 fleeting cards.
That's very true.
So it is now much easier, I think, to put this card just in decks. I will say that I no longer think it is a good idea to put this card in decks.
Yep.
That's where I stand on this.
Look,
right,
if we have Cloud Drinkers in play, this card gets really cheap, and then it's a cantrip that I'm just going to stop talking.
If we play all bad cards, then our deck full of bad cards can be rummaged away into more bad cards.
Briefly, on the note of Cloud Drinker, how has no one... So you guys remember when Hush was 3 mana burst, make a new Hush?
Yeah.
How has no one done the thing? And people were holding people hostage with infinite Hushes with Cloud Drinkers, right?
Yeah. You can do it with the
You can do it with Arise.
Yeah.
Why is no one doing that yet?
I don't know, man.
Oh, wait, you're right.
That is
sweet.
day one when Arise got spoiled. That was the first thing I thought of when I
kill
saw
them
it.
with an Ezreal?
Yeah, turns out
you
fill your board
either,
fill your board of 1/1s just isn't good.
I mean, you can still kill them with an Ezreal. Ezreal still triggers.
No, you can't. The regions don't line up.
Oh,
It's
that's
Ionia
a thing.
and Targon.
That's
now
a thing.
you're playing an Ionia Shurima deck.
Right, whatever. The inherent game mechanics make that not a thing. But my point still stands. You can hold people hostage. I'm not saying I have ever done this, nor do I ever plan to do this, but I'm amazed that no
you
one's
haven't
doing
seen it on
this.
Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, honestly. I can't believe there isn't a compilation.
I feel like there was a win con.
Well, of course. I mean, there was, and I don't know what it was.
Wait, are we in Buildwater?
The win con was getting your opponent to quit, but
Oh, I see. Interesting.
I'm pretty sure that I'm sure that by design the deck had creatures in it that could therefore punch for damage and could therefore kill the opponent's nexus. But I think that
I'm going to attack you on my turn, and then on your turn I'm going to cast spells until you give up and pass.
yeah,
That's the line, I think.
Anyway, I think the next card that we should talk about is not the next card. I guess I said I wanted to talk about a champion nerf next, and so I was going to talk about Aphelios' guns, but we can talk about Wiggly Burblefish instead.
I think
that's also a champion.
Yeah.
nerf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. A Wiggly Burblefish is now a 2/1 instead of a 3/1. So
Yikes.
that's a big change. It's a very big change. It kills you so much slower.
A third is 2/3 is fast.
Yeah, so okay, so we've seen the Twisted Fate nerf, the Pick a Card nerf, and the Wiggly Burblefish nerf.
That's all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is everything that got touched out of TF Fizz, right? Those are all three of the nerfs. Is this deck playable still? Is this still a reasonable deck? A lot of its engines got hit, its payoffs both got. So the Wiggly Burblefish payoff is now significantly worse, right? Yep. It being a 2/1 is a big change, I think. It is going to kill you way less often. You're just going to have an extra turn probably every game, if not two, because of the TF change and the Pick a Card change. You might have one or two more turns every game against this deck, and that deck wins a lot of really close games with a lethal burn off the top.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that this deck will exist. It will be a lot worse, but I think all that will have to change. You're scrapping your 3 Pick-a cards for 3 salvages, and or 2 and some other card.
A lot more.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Yeah, whatever. If I'm decking myself, then whatever. I'm hopefully still winning.
Yeah, exactly. 3 copies of salvages tossing 6 cards. You're seeing the rest of your deck no matter what at that point if you're decking. Yeah, I think the deck will technically exist. It won't be. I think it'll be solidly tier 2 probably. And who knows? Maybe it'll just still be good, and that would be crazy.
Oh man, that would be ridiculous if it was still good. I don't think TF would escape another nerf if this deck is still good.
I think if the deck is still good, I think that's where we want that. By good, I mean 51% win rate.
So I know this isn't the part of the deck that got nerfed, but we could also cut Fizz and play Ezreal again and play a much more controlling version of this deck. It's hard to justify that because the Fizz suit up interaction is really powerful and that part didn't get nerfed at all. But Ezreal's very powerful. And this deck could kind of get to a point where what it wants to be doing in the early turns is casting removal spells instead of
I mean, I mentioned the mid-range
cannons.
Yeah, I mentioned the mid-range Twisted Fate plan a little bit ago. I stand by that's still going to be a good plan in a deck. It could easily be this deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could totally see that. I kind of forgot about the TF Ezreal decks of old. I think those decks were pretty good. I think I think it was pretty obvious that the TF Fizz variants were better when these decks were being developed still. But the TF Ezreal decks had a lot of legs to stand on, and the Ezreal changes help a lot for this type of deck. So I can easily see this. Yeah. I think that this deck is probably going to be
kegs and stuff.
Yeah, you could get the kegs and the red cards back out. That was pretty good. I guess. Here's what I think. I think that with the Wiggly Burblefish nerf, the TF nerf, and the Pick a Card nerf, you're not going to flip Twisted Fate very much anymore. And that was I think that was plan A out of the deck, to be honest, was flip my Twisted Fate. That's how it felt like I won most of my games, at least.
That's fair, yeah.
The Wiggly Burblefish plan was clearly plan B, right? And it was very close to plan A, but, that's now worse, too. So I just don't think that either of these plans are really going to get there independently, and they no longer really tie into each other very well. So I honestly think it might be time for a new shell.
Yeah.
Like I think that this deck is dead. I think that TF Fizz is not going to be like, these nerfs just compile in such a way that like you aren't drawing as many cards, you aren't getting your spells, the payoff isn't as good when you're getting all the spells. You're basically you're it's going to be much harder to flip Twisted Fate. Like all of these plans, payoffs got nerfed, and the payoffs being drawing cards and like seeing more cards all got nerfed, which means you're going to see way less cards. When you do see a bunch of cards, they're still going to be less effective.
Yeah, Burblefish is way worse not in multiples. Like not only when it's not a 2/1, but also not when you only are playing 1 or 2 instead of like 4.
Yeah, much
because you're
worse.
seeing less cards.
Yeah, so like you're gonna put less power into play every time, not just because Burblefish is nerfed, but because you're probably gonna have one less Burblefish on average too, right? Like that's that right there. If your Burblefish turn goes from being 2 Burblefish and an iterative improvement, that's 10 power. It goes from being like a Burblefish and an iterative improvement, that's 5 power, literally half.
Yeah. Do you think the card Wiggly Burblefish is bad now? Because we debated pick a card. We think TF is certainly still good.
Yeah.
Do you think it is bad now?
Let's see. Well, this deck is the only one that ever really exploited it. And I think that it really did need to be in this type of a deck. Like, I think that Wiggly Burblefish is probably still going to be best friends with Fizz. But I think that those decks are probably going to go back to being more like Fizzy.
Buff my deck.
Like buff my Fizz.
Starlet Seer?
Yeah, maybe Starlet Seer isn't the right direction, because those directions were kind of bad, and maybe the PNZ package is better, but like I could see a Wiggly Burblefish deck existing, but I guess I'm gonna say it. I think it's bad. Yeah, I don't think it's good anymore. So
now that you said it, I am thinking I'm gonna try like a Freljord, like a Burblefish, like OTK deck.
Something like that is I think the direction it's gonna have to go in order to live. Because I think that while maybe a little busted, the TF Fizz plan was relatively fair, and now it's just like I think it's just barbecued.
Now your Burblefish can make 3 sisters.
That is pretty sick, actually.
Pretty spicy. All right. Moving on to I think we should talk about Aphelios nerf.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Random deep cards.
Yeah.
we'll get to the deep cards.
Oh boy, will we? Yeah.
We will get to the deep cards. So, Aphelios.
He didn't change. All of his guns went up to 3 mana.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, can we pour one out?
What
for
a
Aphelios?
dead man.
Boy, this is such a big nerf.
Holy
moly.
Imagine paying as much mana for his guns as you did for the champion himself.
Okay, do we think... Okay, do you remember the last card we said was the biggest nerf in the history of the game?
Pack your bags.
Yeah, it was pack your bags. Do you think this is a bigger nerf than that?
Yes.
Ooh. That's a fun question. I do not think that this is a bigger nerf than Pack Your Bags got.
And also, let's be real. Lee Sin from 4 to 5 mana might be the biggest nerf.
I stand by Pack Your Bags being the biggest nerf.
5x.
They changed it from 1 to 5.
Yeah, 5. Oh
they added 4 mana.
I have
never seen a card game add 4 mana to a card,
and it still be decent.
Yeah, ever in my life. And I talked a little bit about how that's not entirely true, and it's still the same. But like, I think that Aphelios is I think Pack Your Bags or like Go Hard went from like clearly the best thing to be doing to like solidly tier 2, maybe worse. I think Aphelios is going from like solidly tier 1 to like solidly
tier 0 with Burblefish.
Maybe, yeah.
Master's flat, like...
Sure.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether... I would argue that a lot of those decks were carried by the other cards, and Aphelios wasn't necessarily the biggest part. Regardless, whether you put Aphelios tier 0, tier 1, at the top of... Like, he was probably the 3rd best champ in the game, I think, at least. Behind Twisted Fate and Fiora.
I think he was probably better than Fiora in a vacuum.
Sure.
Champion.
Regardless, he's around there. I think that he's just, like, basically going to see almost no play anymore.
So... I'm going to disagree with you on 2 fronts here. You said that, first of all, I disagree that I think this is a bigger nerf than Pack Your Bags. And
I think that's close.
And here's why. So, first of all, mathematically speaking, it's bigger nerf because we have 5 guns. They all went up by
It's a
1
5 mana nerf.
That's a 5 mana nerf, not a 4 mana nerf. So right off the bat, you're mathematically wrong.
Honestly, probably a similar amount of mana in a game. If you're casting 4 guns in a game and you're casting 1 pack your bags in a game, it's like the
Checkmate,
same amount of
atheists.
mana.
Yeah, right. So anyway,
They're all
we
slow
already
spells.
established that he's mathematically wrong, which is ironic given that he is by far the best at math here. Anyway, also, pack your bags for the effect is just should never have been 1 mana. Like,
Yeah, we
you're
could
still
probably
paying,
agree with that.
Yeah, you're paying 5 mana for 5 damage to their face and whole board. Like, that's just fair now. The reason I think this is a much bigger nerf is because, like, none of these guns were even vaguely like
Graviton was the only one that was maybe an offender.
like pack your bags needed to be more mana, and it's okay that it's 5 mana. It's still a good card at 5 mana. Calibrum is not a good card at 3 mana. It's fine.
I actually think you're wrong about that.
Okay, sure. What I think that
Each individual gun like is pretty bad, but you still get to pick.
you get to semi pick. You get to cyclically go. Like, if you get to just pick the same gun over and over again, that'd be a little different. But you have to cycle through to circle back to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Aphelios got a night. Like, this is a really big nerf. I just
Crescendum
don't
in
think he's
particular
playable.
looks way worse.
Crescendum used to be 2 mana to bring out a 2 cost, and it was doing. And honestly, I bet that Crescenduming Boxtopus is like still going to be pretty good if people do that. But like, it's just so much less worth it now because it's like you used to be able to like pedal Aphelios, and then maybe you could even play that Crescendum on that turn and put a Boxtopus into play. Like, those turns were really, really good, right? Like, the turns where you could play Aphelios and play the gun were really efficient. They were effective. You immediately started working towards the level up condition, right? You were getting a lot of value. There were a lot of good parts of that, especially because it was early enough that you could, like, you know, if you were getting a Boxtopus or like a Dragon Guard Lieutenant or whatever the heck you were getting, you know, you could really affect the early game board state with the Crescendum. And they being 3 mana, like, you just can't really. It's just basically not going to happen anymore that you're going to be able to play Aphelios and the gun on turn 3. Like, that's almost not going to happen ever.
I think it's.
It might be impossible.
I think it is technically possible, but not realistic. Like, the way you'd have to do it is
Yeah, you could like Fading Memories and the Aphelios or something.
you'd
like.
need Moonsilver plus a
Spacey
Dusk
Sketcher.
Petal, I think.
Yeah, there's
Spacey Sketcher.
yeah, it's just basically not going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
and that's
So, like,
fine. It doesn't need to happen on turn 3 for it to be good. I will say that Crescendum still looks a lot better than Severum and Infernum do. Those are the 2 cards that just look
So bad.
so horrible.
I would have, if I was Riot, and I'm sure they did, I would have entertained not changing the costs of all of them, like changing
wouldn't.
Gravitum and Calibrum up 1,
I think that
and
they
the
all.
others at 2, but maybe they all need to be.
I think
the
they all
same
need to be
cost.
uniform. I
That's
just think
fair.
I would have just given +2/+2 to both of them instead of 1 on each side. You know.
Oh, you would have nerfed them a little bit.
No, I would have.
Or you mean
Buff
buff
them,
them
yeah.
Yes.
with the nerf? I see.
Yeah.
Another thing that hasn't been said yet is that it's so much harder to use a gun, to get a gun, and use the gun. That's like 6 mana. instead of
6
4.
mana. There's no way you can play a gun every turn anymore, right? Like,
Which
it
is
used to be pretty,
honestly probably good.
That is
yeah,
a
it
good thing.
This is clearly a good nerf. Like for the health of the game, I think that Aphelios needed a nerf, and I'm glad that he got nerfed. But boy, does it feel like he got nuked from orbit here. Yeah. So I'm a little. I guess I wish he wasn't nerfed quite this hard.
I actually think that this nerf is not as bad as you guys think, because I
Really?
think that he was so good, and I think that Wiggly Burblefish has been the best deck like the entire time that Aphelios has been alive. And if they would have just nerfed that in Fiora Shen, like, no one thinks that they shouldn't have nerfed Aphelios, but this card would be so ridiculously, resoundingly dominant if the other best decks weren't also insane. And I think that, like, he's still just a 3-drop, 3/2 that replaces himself with a powerful card right now. The situational too, like, the efficiency of the card he replaces himself with is worse, but you still get all the versatility.
He doesn't just replace himself though. He's like a whole engine. He replaces
Exactly.
himself, and then he's an engine.
Exactly. That's why I think he still might still be good.
I see. So you think that now? Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like an underrated part of Aphelios was that he was just like, even if you misshotted him on site, he still put you up cards. He still does that.
That is true.
It is worse, but like maybe now we're rummaging away these cards and then triggering him again to create more cards.
Sure. And now that is actually the idea I want to entertain the most with Aphelios, is that now we're going to play him kind of like Draven.
Yeah.
And that he's going to create cards, and that we're going to discard these cards sometimes, and then they are better than axes,
like
clearly to
Ezreal
cast.
Aphelios,
right? Like
or whatever, right? Like his guns target. Does Gravitum give 2 target pings? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
Cool. But like Ezreal Aphelios now could theoretically be a thing. Why weren't people playing that before? I guess there was probably better things to be doing.
Yeah, turns out the build water decks were much better. And also, I guess that the other thing that people have been talking about is that now that his guns are all 3 mana, you can play them with Tri-Beam and Probulator, which is pretty sweet. I don't know if that's good, but I could see that being good, to be honest. Like, so you'd have to play Targon and PNZ, right?
Yeah.
Targon PNZ, so Aphelios, Ezreal, or whatever, and then we're just, going to play a bunch of 3-drops. It's basically going to be like Draven. That's probably better than the old Draven decks were.
Yeah, could be sick.
Could be good. Yeah.
I think he's like tier 2 now. Is where I'll end up. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think that he's not going to be that good. Like the actual Aphelios take over the game thing, I just think is not going to be realistic anymore. Like, he's not going to take over the mid game anymore. He used to really take over the mid game, and I think that was Aphelios' like biggest strength, is that like when you play Aphelios on 3, you were going to play a moon weapon every turn, if not 2 on some turns, for like the rest of the game, pretty much. And that's just not going to be true anymore. Absolutely. Like, I think that you're probably on average going to play a moon weapon like every other turn now. Yeah. He's going to flip less. Like, yeah.
Targon's massive tempo issues were helped by 2-mana removal spells, and Aphelios' himself tempo issues were massively helped by the Veiled Temple.
Yeah.
So I think that's the next card that we need to talk about.
We definitely. Yeah.
And if we're kind of talking about them in order of power, and then we talked about all the champions first, but
yeah, I think Veiled Temple is certainly where we need to go next.
Really quick. He did get a ever so slight buff in that his chant spell is now 1 instead of 2 mana.
Oh, yeah.
That is not irrelevant, but that's a...
Yeah, Gifts from Beyond now is 1 mana, so that you can still play, you can create and play the weapon for 4 total mana, same as you could before.
Yeah.
Which is... that's a good change. That's a heads up change. I'm glad they made that change. I don't think it's really going to affect that much, other than now we can make Gifts from Beyond off Burblefish.
ooh.
That's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
If I know anything about game development, what happens are they were all sitting in a room. One guy was like, hey, let's make them 1 mana. And then one guy who was like Aphelios was like, we can't do that because of Gifts from Beyond. And they're like, yeah, make Gifts Beyond 1 mana. Shut up. And then they moved on. I think we've had that exact design conversation in our games before. It's like, well, but it messes with this other card. Yep, change the other card too.
It really goes with the patch, the general feel of the patch, which is just blow it up. Yeah. And just blow it up, honestly.
It really feels like there was a very clear meta pyramid with things at the top and then like growing tiers, and I just like decided to take a sledgehammer to the top of it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I call for the like... I'm a big fan of the Ragnarok patches where they just blow up the whole world.
Yeah.
In pretty much every game, to be honest.
It really is an exciting time.
It's really exciting. And I think that like...
Magic has been forced to do it.
Yeah. And
quite a few Ragnaroks in a row. It's like ban list, 7 things. 2 months later, 8 things. Boom, boom.
Yeah, Hearthstone had a similar problem for a little bit, but like, I don't know. I really like... So it's rough as a game company, like as the proprietors of the game, right? To have these blow everything up patches, because people have favorite things, right? Like, you don't really want to disincentivize the person who just got in the game and crafted this sweet TF Aphelios deck or whatever, or Zoe Aphelios, or, Wiggly Bird, this TF Fizz deck, right? Like, people who are new to the game and don't have a lot of crafting materials, right? They get into the game, they spend all their things on this one deck, and then it gets nerfed. Like, that's a big problem. Those people are pretty likely to just stop playing the game, right? Because now they're going to have to pay for a new deck, and their other deck that they liked just got nerfed, right? Like, a lot of people are just not going to play the game anymore. But me personally, as like an entrenched player, as like an enfranchised player, I love the Nuke the World patches. Like, I think the meta always just changes so much, and it's so interesting, especially for the first couple weeks. Like, I wish that game companies did it more often and had some solution to the like, sorry, we nerfed your deck problem. You know, here's some
I was thinking maybe
cards
you
or
just
whatever.
like get wild cards for each card in your collection that you own that gets
So
nerfed.
in Hearthstone, the way they did it, they every time they nerfed a card, there'd be an announcement on like a window would pop up when you open the game next time after the patch, and they'd be like, these cards are nerfed for a limited time. You can disenchant these cards for the full value that you crafted them for, which was very necessary because of how hilariously consumer unfriendly Hearthstone is.
Yeah, and that actually was quite a good system. And I actually kind of hope that Legends of Runeterra adopts it. Or at least something similar.
I don't think it's that necessary. I do think that for a patch this big, they might want to just blanket give out X amount of wildcards to everyone.
Yeah, if they just gave everyone 3 champ wildcards to go with this like big patch, I think that a lot of those players who would be like, man, they just like nerfed my deck. And I even know a lot of players who like, you know, obviously we've had this podcast, you know, some of my IRL friends have come to me and be like, hey, I want to start playing this game. Send me a deck list, right? What do you think
Always
I should play?
TFS.
and you know, I'll send them whatever deck list I think they'd like. You know, some of them have played League and like certain champions. You know, some of them I just know how they like to play card games, you know, whatever. And I know like 3 or 4 people that I think are in this exact boat where it's like, I just told them to craft this deck and now it's getting nerfed. And now I feel kind of bad because it's like, I told them to craft that deck. And it's like, it's getting nerfed
You can gift them some wild cards, Alex.
Yeah, maybe.
You can be the change you want to see in the world.
But I guess I don't know. I guess that's my PSA here is I wish that they would give some form of recompense for the newer players. Anyway, Veil Temple.
Cool. Yes, Veiled Temple is just getting the Grand Plaza treatment. Instead of giving +1/+1, it gives +1/+0 when it triggers now.
The amount of times that I couldn't cast a removal spell on my opponent's unit because if they had 2 Burst Seed spells, I was getting blown out because they had a Veiled Temple in the play was a lot.
Here's my hot take of the day. I think that this card is not good anymore. I do not think this card will be played anymore. I think this is a huge nerf and it is getting very understated. This card gave like 3 or 4 toughness at an absolute minimum throughout the course of the game onto your units that mattered. And now they're just all going to die to the removal spells they were dying to before. And the big part of the Veiled Temple's like dominance in a game was it felt so impossible to kill their biggest thing. Like between Pale Cascade, Veiled Temple triggers, like if heaven forfend you were playing any form of protection, right? Like Guiding Touch, like it's just so hard to kill their unit that you care about. And when it starts piling onto a Felios or Boxtopus even, like it was a big problem. And that's just not going to be a problem anymore. And maybe this card will still be good because of the, like, if this card's still good, it's going to be because it's still helping you win the important turns, which I've talked about in the past, but the important turns being like, most Legends of Runeterra games have one crucial turn where both players put like 4 or 5 spells on the stack, right? And it's really important that you win that turn.
And fun fact, this card Sleeper gave you 4 mana on that turn because the turn before you played your 2-drop and then went back up to 3 mana and passed with full spell mana. And then it gives you mana in the middle of the turn.
Yeah. So it's, the fact that it converted into spell mana also was like a big deal. But like now, and when it was helping you win these powerful turns, it was also giving your creature +1/+1, right?
So another
part of winning these combats. Now, if you have the Veiled Temple in play and I Mystic Shot your Aphelios, I mean, it's getting Mystic Shot, right? Like, unless you have Pale Cascade, right? Like, there's just not that many ways to buff toughness anymore. And Targon really got away with being able to play a really high spell count because it made its units count and matter a lot. And I think the Veiled Temple was a big part of that.
Yep.
And I think that this card is probably not going to be worth the 4 mana in a lot of decks anymore. Like this card is going to go from in every Targon deck and probably the best card in almost all of them to you're probably going to play it in a couple specific decks. Like I expect it's still probably going to be good in like Lee Zoe.
That's the deck that I expect to be least hurt by this Veiled Temple.
But, I mean,
but it still hurts. It still hurts a lot.
Absolutely hurts.
Yeah, but like that's the deck where I expect to have it matter the least, where that deck's game plan is almost entirely win one relevant turn.
I also think that it's a pretty relevant. It's still good with Aphelios because you need the mana.
Yeah, it's still good with Aphelios because you need the mana. And, you know, now that the guns cost 3 mana, the temple isn't just cleanly making you a gun.
Yeah.
making you gun mana anymore, which was a big part of why you could chain these Aphelios guns together. I'm not even confident if you're going to want to put, like, you probably are going to have to put Veil Temple in your Aphelios deck still, because now your guns cost so much mana. But like that might not even be their plan anymore because your guns cost so much mana. I think that this card's probably not going to see very much play after this.
That's reasonable. I don't want to talk too much else about it. I don't have much else to say.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah,
I thought that was going to be a hotly contested opinion. I thought you guys were going to say it was still great.
I think it is still quite good. I think it's much better than you think it is, but I think we've talked all the good cards today.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the card was always better than he thought it was.
True that.
Yeah, it just turns out that in modern Legends Runeterra, the amount of cards you have in your hand is so seldom the problem. But a lot of that is because of stuff like pick a card that is also getting nerfed, stuff like Twisted Fate drawing a ton of cards. But
yeah, I do think the card is a lot worse. But anyway, I think that's it for the champions, everything relevant to champions. So let's just start going back in order down the list. And
Sounds good.
Next card in order on the list is Drag Dredgers. Going from a 1 mana 1/1 to a 1 mana 2/1 back to what it originally was.
Toss is 4, right?
Toss is 3.
Toss is 3. All right.
was Deep too good when they nerfed this card?
Deep was, I wouldn't say it was too good. It was very prevalent. But
I just didn't really play then, I think.
Yeah,
I played it a bunch because, you know.
How big of a deal is this, Hugh? You're a resident Deep guy.
It's a pretty big deal. It now can, like, your 1-drop can do anything now.
It was a big deal that card was like so bad.
Yeah,
right?
it like really sucked. Like, you literally have to play this card in Deep because it's just, it tosses cards. Like, you just need to play it. And now that it actually trades with creatures that matter,
it trades with Fiora.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
One of the
biggest. That's so bad.
One of the biggest reasons.
Take it away.
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons Deep is has been so hilariously bad is because it's can't beat Fiora Shen ever.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it just can't, because Sea Scarab, which was a 1/2, is now also going to a 2/3, which is the other buff. It's a very big buff.
That one is huge. +1/+1 on a card without any other changes to it is such a big nerf.
Yeah, I actually.
Do you remember when Kindly Tavern Keeper went from trash to quite good just by getting +1/+0? And the same was true for Forest and Trapper.
Yep.
Like, it's a huge buff, especially on a 2-cost card. The change in the stats to cost ratio on Sea Scarab by giving it 2/5 more, like it's like 40% more stats and no other change. It's so good.
I'm just gonna say it. I think Deep is good now. Not just good.
Yeah. Oh,
like, like its biggest problem by a mile was that it had a horrible early game.
Yeah, and now
all of the powerful early game stuff is getting, like, a lot of the powerful engines that punished you for having such a bad early game are getting nerfed.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you get Deep online, you're probably not going to be seeing 10 elusive power and flipped Twisted Fate on the other side of the battlefield, which Deep players were very accustomed to, right? Like, you're not going to be seeing these flipped Aphelios Veil Temple chains anymore as much. Like, I think
actually just stomp Targon in the late game.
We can stomp Targon in the late game, right? Like, I think that we might still have a problem if these like Lease Index come back, which I suspect these Lease Index are coming back as well. So like
with a bit of a vengeance.
A bit of vengeance. So I suspect that might still be a little bit of a natural predator, but
luckily Deep has a bit of vengeance to keep that in check.
Keep that in check, right? So we've got a really good early game now. Like a 1 mana 2/1 into a 2 mana 2/3 that are both doing the thing we need to do. Like, I'm sold.
Yeah, no, Deep.
I'm buying my ticket.
I'm playing Deep again.
Yeah, I'm getting onto the hype train. I bought my ticket to the hype train here. I'm getting on the hype train.
So this next card makes me very sad because it confirms that Ledros will never get unnerfed because it used to be 8 mana.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So now they've locked in, never letting themselves put it down because then they'd have to put Dreadway back up.
Yeah,
so
that's
never happening.
It was never happening.
Just
anyway.
to give context, Dreadway is now 8 mana instead of 9, and
Ledros used to be 8 mana in beta. That card was too good.
And is now also a 4/6 instead of a 4/8. They wanted to make absolutely certain that you cannot do the concurrent timelines OTK thing anymore because it felt kind of bad to have it happen to you.
Honestly, I'm happy about this change because it means people will stop talking about it.
I actually
and they
pretty much
already
agree.
should have stopped talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that we can stop hearing about all the whining about how just, oh, God, people needed to stop whining about this so long ago.
Yeah, it was never a problem, guys. It sucked to lose to, and I get it sucks losing these unlosable games to their 9-mana threat.
But you know
the problem
what?
about unlosable games is that when they have this combo in their deck, it wasn't an unlosable game because they can kill you 60%, right? Like, you know, and that was the problem. I get it. It was kind of an unfun play pattern. I don't disagree that it was kind of an unfun play pattern.
But you know what else the deck was? Terrible.
I'm going to go with medium. I think the deck was medium. It was like a reasonable shell outside of at least I think there was a reasonable shell.
Okay, sure. I'll agree.
You
We'll
can-
agree to
you can
disagree
think it
on
was
that.
terrible,
The
yeah.
deck was bad, in my opinion.
That's pretty fair.
Never even came close to
So
thinking that deck was good.
I want to play some 5-mana champions that have 1-mana removal spells as their champ spells and get drawn by 8-mana boats.
What? Wait.
That's what Gangplank does.
Yeah?
Gangplank, Swain and Gangplank both have the same. That's the joke I was making. Did I?
That didn't even vaguely land.
No, it
It wasn't a
completely
joke.
over my
It's
head.
just interesting that it's the same now.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
Historically, like
Yeah, so now we have Swain
both
and
boats are
Gangplank.
8-mana. Both champions are 5-mana. Like
Your
I'm not saying
sentence-
that we should put them in the same deck. Yeah, it
Your,
was a
your
very bad
sentence was very
Actually, can we
poorly
cut that? Can we
structured.
just pause here?
Like,
Go back.
Yeah, real talk. The Dreadway is like we're not going to play this card, right?
No, I think this card's good.
Really, you
Yeah.
do think the Dreadway's good?
Yeah.
Holy!
I think the Dread. Well, have you ever played against the Dreadway when it's been played in play against you?
in Expedition,
So people
where it belongs.
People also used to do Dreadway OTKs with Dreadway into Ledros, like just casting them.
just raw.
And now it curves out. Like, I'm not saying it's great,
Okay,
man. Look,
okay.
I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm not saying it's great, but like, that's like reasonable to do. Like, remember those old Go Hard? Like, people put a couple Dreadways in the Go Hard deck because it doubles Go Hard. This was when Go Hard was 1 mana. But it doubled Go Hard and it drew the like random one of Gangplanks that you wanted to play. Like, you could theoretically play
Pretty cute.
2 Elise, 1 Gangplank, 1 Dreadway, 2 Ledros in a Go Hard control deck. And maybe you want to be playing Kindred instead or whatever. But like, I actually think this card might just be good. Like, it's not that much worse than the Leviathan. Although, holy hell, does it have lower stats than the Leviathan?
I'm going
My
to stop you
God.
right there. It is way worse than the Leviathan. It is so much. The Leviathan says win the game when you like take your neck. Like if you have Swain and the Leviathan, that's it. That's the plan. They're locked. You just won.
Have you ever
Like
okay.
I guess that you can untap with this card. And
You don't need to untap. On the turn that you play Dreadplank with a flipped Gangplank in play, they are dead.
yeah, that's true. They're
so
very
dead.
dead on that turn.
Yeah.
But like, I guess, yeah. You're not
yeah,
wrong.
I mean,
Draws a parlay.
I don't think you
Bang bang. It's a 2 damage parlay.
doubling every single source of damage
It's a
that you
lot.
have
it
is
does kill him dead.
so much damage. I think that this card is like you can definitely now put this card in decks because it's 8 mana instead of 9. 9 is so hard and 8 is way less
That's
difficult.
true. You really don't. I guess it's really very fair that like you really don't care that much about the stats on this card.
No, you
like,
really
you're
don't.
really playing it for the text here.
And it's also like a 4/6 is still big enough that it's not dying very easily to remove.
Yeah, it's still big enough that it's not going to die to anything that doesn't say destroy it. Probably right.
yeah.
Like, it's still going to be hard to kill in combat, right? Especially if you're attacking with it last. You know, I could see it dying to a lot of Mystic Shot plus block with a 4-power thing, but like you can put it last in combat if you're attacking with it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you're still going to get your double damage through the whole thing. I guess I'm a little bit struggling to imagine what deck it goes in. Is really the part that's still holding me up. Like, are we just going to put this deck in Pirates instead of Captain Farron or something?
Oh,
I mean,
that's
Captain Farron got nerfed. This
actually
could be a
kinda
reasonable
live.
substitute.
That's not unreasonable. I probably Captain Farron's almost certainly still better.
That's what I'm thinking. So, like, where is it going?
I
You
mean,
know,
I
like-
don't know, but you know, none of us know anything about the meta anymore because the meta
that's pretty
doesn't.
true.
Yeah, the meta doesn't exist anymore. So we're gonna see where everything goes. Really, I mean, all I know is I want to go back playing Deep and Lee Zoe a whole bunch because I love both those decks and they're probably good again.
Yeah, probably. I'm very excited for Deep Lee Zoe stuff to be good. Those decks are Lee Zoe in particular is just one
yeah.
of my favorites of all time.
All right, so the next card that got buffed is Shadow Assassin is going from a 1-2 to a 2-1. And
Take it away.
A couple times I was like, ooh, what if we buff Shadow Assassin? I said it a lot. It became a meme. I'm very happy about it. For those of you who didn't know and didn't play during, I think it was beta.
It was beta for sure, yeah.
Like all of the decks were like Solitary Monk was a 4/3. All of the decks were like Assassin Solitary Monk decks. Like mid-range those were their only creatures that cost 3 or less mana. Was big good in aggro decks. I think this card is very good. I'm really happy to see it come back to Ionia. I think it's going to be very good in... I think like... I think you should definitely play this card in Lee Zoe.
If you're Shen, maybe? What do you think about that? Or
let's cut off yours and play Shadow Assassins. Hee hee.
Honestly, could be good.
Yeah. I honestly think that the thing that I was talking about earlier is like, I kind of just want to put like this card, Zap Spray Fin, and like Lulu and Fizz in a deck.
Oh,
like
that's
like, it's kind of sweet. Like you can play Eye of the Dragon, like because you're casting a bunch of spells, and like, you know, maybe that's atrocious, and you can tell me, Noble, that's atrocious. But
it sounds
sweet. Like
reasonable.
that's a lot of cards that got buffed all in one deck.
Yeah, I could. This is great. Ionia just had like no good cards.
Yeah,
and now having a good card, at least one, is a big upside for playing the deck. Because
absolutely.
You know, Ionia, not no good cards. Ionia had one good card, and it was Deny, and it was already pretty reasonable to play Ionia to be able to play Deny.
Yeah.
But then Shurima came out, and it became not that reasonable anymore because now you should just play Shurima because you can usually get a better card there too. But now there's a very real argument. It's like, I can play Ionia, I can play Deny, and Shadow Assassin.
Yeah,
right?
in my like random Targon control deck or whatever.
Like those cards are just going to be good for you, right?
Yeah.
Like I could easily like Shadow Assassin is not just a big nerf for Shadow or a big buff for Shadow Assassin. This is a big buff for Ionia as a whole. Like just having any playable unit, which they really didn't have any of before, other than I guess River Shaper. Like this and River Shaper, like it's a pretty good. This River Shaper Deny is a great start to a control deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Ionia buffs, they gave Fey Guide an extra toughness.
What a bizarre card!
And you know.
This is a weird one.
For those of you who don't play that much Expedition and don't know what Fey Guide does, it is a 4-mana 3/3, now a 3/4, that says grant an ally elusive permanently. They get elusive forever. And who knows? Maybe this is good now.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
It's
it doesn't,
right?
Do we have any 0-mana 3/1s?
Oh, it just does that?
It just does that.
Do we have any 0-mana 3/1s I can give elusive? I heard that's pretty good. Like honestly, pretty good. Like curving Lulu into this card and then like putting the Lulu trigger on elusive. Like that's a lot of elusive.
That was always
damage.
the idea. Like they're literally like his art is literally him guiding Lulu.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like
this, I think that this card could see play and could be good. I actually like I'm not really sure what deck this card's going to go in, but I'm a big fan of just like good stats with a reasonable effect. Like maybe this card's not good enough because the cards surrounding it aren't good enough. Maybe this card's not good enough because there's more powerful things to be doing. But at the very least, this card has good stats and a good effect.
Slap it on the ballistic bot and just kill someone.
I think that if this card's good, it's going to be the biggest source of whining for the community next.
It might be.
The Garen had elusive.
Give my Dreadway elusive.
Yeah. It can give things elusive and therefore is the enemy.
Dreadway has 8 power, doesn't it? Because it doubles itself.
Exactly.
Technically, yeah.
Didn't realize that one.
Yeah, no, it's relevant. Anyway, next card, Legion Rearguard, going from a 3/1 back to a 3/2. They decided that that's a fair change.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
It was like definitely like literally strictly worse than that random
Bloodthirsty Marauder.
Yeah, and then also definitely quote unquote strictly worse than Dunekeeper and worse than Legion Saboteur. Like it was
real bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's playable again. So that's cool.
I think this card, it's pretty, I've said this in the past, but it's very important for aggro decks to have a critical mass of good 1-drops, especially in this game. So I think having an extra good 1-drop means that your aggro decks are going to be better.
Yep.
Great. Cool. Sign me up.
Yeah, cool. Next card, Esteemed Hierophant. For those of you that don't remember, it is the 3-mana 3/4 that ticks down your Sun Disc 2 rounds. Yeah. It now ticks it down 3 rounds, which is wildly irrelevant, and I do not care about this card at all.
I think you meant wildly unplayable. Next.
Yep, next indeed. All right.
Yeah, I don't know what I said.
Irrelevant is the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
wildly
cool.
irrelevant, wildly unplayable.
Yeah.
Never
Okay.
gonna play.
In my head, you corrected me, and for a moment, I was really scared that I said inaccurate, and I was like, "Well, that's not the word I wanted." Anyway, yeah, Esteem Hierophant still bad. That deck still bad. Probably. I'm
Definitely.
gonna give it like an 85% chance that deck is still bad.
Put it at like 98.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
I am Yi of Little Hope, but boy, does that deck have no hope.
Yeah. Anyway, next, Callous Bone Crusher. It's the 4-mana 6/3 with reputation that says I cost 2. It is now a 4-mana 6/4. This card might actually be good now.
That's so big.
It is.
That's like
really
big.
It's 4-mana 6/4. It's huge.
Yeah. Like, you know those times when your opponent like has Nightfall and then they play like 2 or 3 Stygian Onlookers and you're like 12 power for 3 mana. Also, lol at Wiggly Burblefish.
If you're about to compare these 3 Stygian Onlookers to my 4-mana 6/4,
But like the turns where you reputation, like Whisper Words, like LeBlanc Champ Spell your thing, play a 6/4. It's like that's a really efficient use of your mana.
yeah. So this card was already like quite good when you had reputation. Now it's really good when you have reputation.
Kind of fine when you
It's
don't.
almost fine
Yeah.
when you just play it
So-
for 4 mana.
The biggest reason I think this is actually relevant is because this card went from unplayable at 4 mana to you don't hate the fact that you're casting this card at 4 mana.
I think that this card. Okay, so I think this card is good enough to be put in constructed decks. Whether or not it will find a constructed deck to live in, like, you know, there's a lot of cards that are good enough in theory to see playing constructed, I think, but you know, they can't all find a home, right? Like you need a cohesive plan, a cohesive package, right? And you have to be part of your own clique of good cards, right, in order to see play. But you know, I'm a little worried that this card might just not find a home, and if it does, I think it's probably going to be like a one of. You know, like, where like sometimes you're going to draw it later in the game off your Whispered Words or whatever. Like, you know, in theory, if you're putting this deck as a one of in your deck, you're more likely to see it in the late game after you've triggered reputation, because then you're going to be wordsing quite a bit in theory. So you're more likely to draw it if you have less copies in your deck on later turns than you are on the earlier turns. And if you have to play it on turn 4 as your 4-drop, I don't think you're going to be that sad here. So maybe you can even play 2 of them. I don't really think I want to put 3 in my deck very much because, like, you know, it's not like playing this on turn 4 is the kind of like turn around high five your buddy type of slam dunk turn. Wow. It's not that good, but like, at least it's going to be fine. You know,
Absolutely.
There's going to be turns where your opponent plays the Veiled Temple and you're like 6/4, hit you for 1,000,000. You know, like,
yeah.
I think that's about it for this card that we.
Yeah, I actually think it could see play.
So with that is the last card change, balance change we've seen. Real quick, I want to mention that they are adding a bunch of content to the Lab of Legends
Sick.
lab.
This is dope.
They're adding Talia and Azir to the like champ lineup. They're adding difficulty tiers: normal, hard, heroic, and legendary.
Very big
You
fan.
need to complete normal to unlock hard to unlock the next one, etc., etc. You now get 3 reward rerolls per run. So if you like, you know, those times where you're like, this is the most worthless upgrade to this card that could have ever existed, you can reroll those now. You get 3 per run, and you get run result stats at the end of your run. So that's cool.
That's really cool.
Lab of Legends really is amazing. I love it.
I love Lab of
even
Legends.
as a spike, which is really saying something I normally hate. Lab.
No, I haven't been playing too much of it because I've been tryharding with TF Fizz to get into Mastered, which I did manage to do last night. Like last night, I like played some ranked with TF Fizz. I fell down from like by playing against a bunch of Lysandra Trundle and then like losing to a bunch of random jank decks, including Boomerang Blade. So like my opponent, I tried out Fiora. I like played a bit of Fiora Shen because I was gonna miss Fiora. My opponent cast the Reckoning that killed 2 3/2s, Fiora and Shen, with a LeBlanc in play.
Dear God.
And then the next turn, and then I redeployed like Shen Screeching Dragon, and then they just like slammed Boomerang Blade. And I was like, oh my God. And then I fell down to like Diamond 3 or Diamond 2 ADLP, and then I was like, it's like, I'm gonna play some TF Fizz before bed when I'm talking about game design. And I won 3 games in a row. I was like, well, I'm gonna stop playing when I lose. And then I got to Masters.
That's a good way to go.
Yeah, that's ended on a high note with my baby TF Fizz. Glad it got me to last Masters before the end of the season. Excited to play some like jank decks now. Like very excited to like not feel like I need to play TF Fizz, which I both very much like, have a ton of reps on. So it's just like clearly the choice for me and was definitely the best deck. Like very excited to get to do some new fun stuff.
Yeah. So I think, as a quick note, Lab of Legends, if you haven't played it, highly recommend it. Even as a competitive podcast, we've all played it and it's a blast. All these changes sound great for Lab of Legends. Like I'm super excited to maybe like stream some of this stuff. Yeah. So highly recommend Lab of Legends for anyone who hasn't played it.
We're about to move on to user questions, but before we do, I was just like kind of just scrolling through random stuff in the patch notes, and I read a bug fix I thought was kind of funny.
Oh, please share.
Stone weaving no longer incorrectly creates buried sun disk in expeditions.
Shouldn't it create
Stone
buried?
Oh my God! Sorry, stone weaving is not the card I thought it was.
You thought it was stone shaping.
I thought it was stone shaping. I thought you like
shaped stone.
Shaped stone. I thought people were like giving their creatures +3/+1, and then the buried sun disk just appeared in their hand.
That's also what I thought when I first read that.
Okay.
It'd be even better if it just appeared in play. It's like, here's my sun disk with 3 counters on it or something.
Yeah, never mind. That's way less funny. All right. Anyway, moving on to user questions.
Yeah, I guess real quick, do we want to talk about... So that's all the patch notes. Should we like briefly give our impressions as the patch as a whole? How do you guys feel about the patch? Like general improvements? Is there anything in particular you're most excited to play? Quick summary.
I'm excited not to have to play TFS anymore, or feel like I'm minting / like random Aphelios deck / Fiora Shen.
Yep.
Very excited to play Drank, especially because like getting into a new tier, I can do the like, I'm in Masters now, so I can play whatever I want. I can stream whatever I want, have a great time. Yep. Don't have to feel bad for not being in Masters. I'm in Masters. I can do what I want now. God damn it. And very excited to just play like a ton of weird decks. I'm very excited to play Lulu. Very excited to play probably to like do some Aphelios Tribeam and Populator or like Aphelios Lux, because 2 guns is a final spark. Boom,
that sounds
boom.
awesome.
We don't have to play Stony Suppressor in that deck anymore. So I'm just very excited. Great meta shakeup. Some things like maybe got nerfed a little harder than they needed to. Like I was just thinking about the kind of decks I play TF in now, and like probably didn't need to go to 9 cards, but like definitely should have. Good that they did that to be safe. People would have been very upset if TF saw 0 nerfs.
Yeah.
Very happy about it. I wish that there was a different way they could have nerfed Wiggly Burblefish without making it like a 2/1 for 6 mana. Like just looking at the card, it looks really bad because like it's only a 2/1. Make it a 2/2 or something. But I think this is probably the best for the health of the game, so I'm gonna say it's okay.
Yeah, actually, I honestly think that this was a great patch.
Excited for Shurima. What that region do, baby?
Yeah, I'm really happy with this patch, to be honest. I think it nerfed all the things I wanted nerfed. I think it buffed a few random cards. Like the deep buffs were sick, and I didn't expect that. There were a lot of surprises to me in this patch that were like cool buffs that I'm really excited to play with. Shadow Assassin, the deep buffs. Like I think this is a very good meta shake. Like really meta diverse, really shake up the meta type patch. The Lulu buff seems really good. I'm really happy with this patch. I think they did a great job.
People ready to Maokai some
I am ready
players,
to Maokai some Targon's players. Oh yeah.
And I think the biggest buff out of this whole patch was to the subreddit and me being able to go back to it. With that.
Oh yeah, I can read Swim's Twitter again.
Yeah, I can go back to the subreddit and no longer want to gouge out my eyes with an ice pick.
I've wanted to make a joke about how salty Swim's been recently for so long.
Swim's salty always.
Okay, I'm Swim. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, man, but boy,
I'm not sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. All right.
I do want to say like,
one
one last thing. I saw a lot of complaining on Twitter about people who didn't think they nerfed Targon enough. They're like, we didn't nerf Targon's healing. It's still going to be oppressive. There were some very heavy nerfs to Targon here, and also very heavy nerfs to things that let Targon do things outside of its region identity. Like, it's okay if Targon is the best late game in the game. Like, one of the regions has to be that region, and it's okay if it's Targon.
Especially because they have the 10 mana space dragon that controls the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Veiled Temple not also breaking the mana parity while you're breaking the card parity matters a lot. Veiled Temple and Aphelios, like the 2 best cards in the region going down, matters a ton. Like I think that maybe you still don't like to play against Targon, but I think this is going to do great things for the balance.
I absolutely agree. All right. Time for our listener question of the week. This one comes from Tremor192. They ask, how do you go about refining a new concept or deck? For example, Dreadway was buffed. I'll go and make a standard Thresh Gangplank and try the deck out after playing 15 games. At this point, I'm stuck, and here comes the question, what to do then? Feel free to use other examples as an explaining point.
I wouldn't play Thresh, is my advice.
Yeah, all right. So real quick, how I go about refining and tuning a new concept or deck. So this is pretty interesting because I would not describe myself as much of a brewer. I think you're a little bit more than I am, Noble, and he was probably the brewiest out of all of us.
Yeah. I also think you're the best at it. You made a face, but I really do. I do think.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. If that's
Green,
true.
white, standing stones.
All right.
Okay. That's, you know what? We can't bring Evian examples into this because that game clicked with me on a level that no other game really has. I got that game. Like that.
Just understood it viscerally.
I just understood it so well. I don't know, man.
So Hugh, how do you go about refining a new concept or deck?
So the first thing I do is I figure out what my plan A is, and I play the deck a little bit. And if my plan A either one sucks, I try and change my plan A, or if I suck at achieving plan A, but the plan A is good, I try and look at how I'm achieving it. So like, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but like, if the trouble the deck is having, let's say I want to get to late game and whatever late game that is, and the trouble I'm having are on turns like 3 through 6. Most decks in the meta are just like suddenly outpacing me like really rapidly. Like the things they're doing on turns 3, 4, and 3. Did I say 3, 4, and 6?
3 through 6.
3 through 6, whatever. Anyway, the mid game basically. I try and pick sections of the games I'm playing where like the deck feels particularly weak, and then if I can identify where I'm getting outpaced, like am I just not contesting the board enough? Is my removal not keeping up with what my opponent's doing? Like there's certain aspects of a deck I can just hopefully look at and find specific reasons the deck is lacking in that place, basically.
Yeah,
that's pretty much
that's a way better answer than I could have given. So I'm really glad that I shipped that question to you. Personally, I do a lot more refining concepts than refining decks. Like I know it's your question specifically asked about concepts or decks, and they usually like a concept usually becomes a deck, but I find that I have much more success like thinking about how my deck is going to interact with the other decks in the meta, right? Like usually when I'm building a new deck, I'm building around a specific card that I think is powerful, or I'm building around a specific like angle that I want to attack the meta for because I think that's powerful for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so that's usually most of my brewing is because it comes from, I think this is underplayed. I think this is underrepresented. How am I going to attack that? Basically. And then I build a deck from those, and then I'll like play it, and usually my deck sucks and I'll bench it after 5 games. But when they're reasonable, like I usually personally I like to constantly re-examine if my analysis on why I'm playing this deck is good, because like you have to have a reason for playing a brew.
Yeah.
Right. Like, nobody comes, your reason could be, I like all these cards, but for the most part, if you're building a deck, you want your deck to have something good about it, right? Like there needs to be a reason you're playing this deck. What does your deck do better than other decks? Like if you show me just a strictly worse, discard aggro deck that's playing, Jinx Ash or whatever instead of Jinx Draven, and it's basically the discard aggro deck, I'm going to be like, why aren't you just playing discard aggro, right? Like your deck needs to do something better than other decks, and that plan needs to be good. So personally, I think that you just need to constantly reevaluate what your deck is trying to do better than any other deck can, and is that good? And like, as long as the answer to that question is yes, and why you're doing it, then I think that you can, individual card choices aren't as important as long as your general plan is good.
Yeah. I definitely just want to know where I'm at brewing. I just remember the card Loaded Dice exists, and I was like, well, that's a payoff for hitting people with small, wiggly purple fish. And I'm going to try it.
So how are you going to refine that deck? And what is that deck doing better than? Is it because Loaded Dice is underplayed?
I think loaded dice is our new pick a card, boys. You heard it here first.
It draws a lot of cards.
It does.
It's for the rest of the game. For some reason, I thought it was for that turn. I thought it was really bad.
Wait.
But loaded dice says on it, for the rest of the game, when you damage the enemy nexus, like warning shotting it, you nab one.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's like actually decent. Like I remembered that card existed. Was like, how bad is this? And it's like pretty good. Like,
Wait.
you heard it here first, folks. Like,
How did I misread that card so
I don't
bad?
know.
Are you sure it says that?
It's round FML.
See, that's
That's what I thought. I was like, wait a second, really?
I got so excited. I was like, this is a nuts value engine.
It's like 15 comments already.
Yeah,
and you're like, no, Noble, you didn't read the card, you idiot.
There's no world in which for 4 mana,
Yeah,
the rest of the game.
I would have seen that on Reddit by now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially when each shroom is one instance of damage.
Oh, you just deck yourself.
You deck them.
You deck them.
You're nabbing their shit.
Wait, but then aren't you gonna eat the puff caps? Because you'd like draw their card and then you get puff capped. This is a non-bow. I'm off it.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah, you're the one taking damage. They're not taking damage.
Sure.
When they drew a card, they would take 3 damage from shrooms. You draw 3 of their things.
And then take 15.
This can't exist.
We're
so maybe we
talking
should
about a
talk
hypothetical where Noble is illiterate because, like,
That's not a hypothetical.
All right. Our next question comes from Twilight, and they ask, what are you guys expecting on LOR's first anniversary? I mean, there's clearly going to be some form of event, right? Probably going to be some type of like log on rewards giveaway thing, some form of like, it might be like a lunar
when's
new
the
event.
When is the anniversary?
I don't know.
Because
Must
I don't
be
know.
soon.
As my girlfriend can tell you, I'm not good at remembering that kind of stuff.
because I'm sure they're gonna do something. I feel like it'll probably be another like battle pass orient, like
Maybe a champion.
do a
Release
thing.
like
And you know, they could do that instead. They could just be like a Aphelios or Zoe release, like a small single champ release. Maybe that's when they'll release like Ari, like the poster child of League of Legends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be another way.
There will
to do that.
definitely be a champion release with it, like for sure. There's
When
no
is
way
it?
there won't be.
Do we know?
We don't know. No, we're not
Not
sure.
off
It
the top
must
of
be
my head.
soon, though, right? Like soonish, at least.
Yeah.
My inclination is probably sometime in the summer, maybe like June, July. That kind of sounds right to me.
That does sound right. It sounds like, yeah.
You know what I want to do sometime?
Yeah,
I just want to look back over all the patches.
just see
Like
what's
remember, you
happened. Yeah, and just a nice trip down memory
I've
lane.
accidentally done that with random games before where like I'm on the wiki and then like patch something is like linked and I just like click on a really old patch and I look at the patch and I was like, oh my God.
I've done that with Hearthstone before. I
Yeah.
did that with Hearthstone like last year. I was like, "Whoa, man, what was the name of that card again?" I like couldn't remember cards anymore. And I was like, "Oh
Doing
yeah,
it. I'm tapping
piloted
Seymour
Shredder."
news a lot of times. We're down to 1.13 where Lee Sin and Make It Rain got nerfed.
All right, so next question comes from Dragon. They ask, "Do you listen to music or a podcast while you play? If so, what do you listen to?"
No.
Champ Select. No, just
That's
kidding.
not true.
I was
No,
like,
but
"There's
it's
no way
what I
that's true."
recommend you listen to.
On a more slightly more serious, I do occasionally. So we actually talked about a little bit last episode how something I do is like when I kind of zone out, I play better. This is true for some decks and not true for others. If I can identify a deck where me paying less attention makes me play better, I will listen to music because it helps me pay less attention in a way that doesn't, like, for example, I can't. So I've tried watching TV shows while playing Red Legends of Runeterra, and that goes poorly almost always because like I've lost several games. Like the turn will pass back to me. I'll get the attack token. I'll go to full mana and I'll just click pass, and my opponent will just sit there being like, "What did he just do?"
Yeah, I've started a game, walked out into the living room to talk to Alex, and like not remembered that there was a game that was started, and then like
Yeah,
I-
so
bad.
I'll listen to music sometimes. Is my answer.
Listen to music most of the time. Yeah, I think. And I don't always I don't always listen to music. I find that I really like listening to music when I'm just like playing by myself and I'm like trying something out or like getting a few games in before I go somewhere or whatever. Not every game of Legends of Runeterra you play is going to be, your 100% max effort. That's just not achievable. Yeah. I really like listening to music and playing 90% effort, right? Like as opposed to, but when I'm in like a tournament or like, playing on, not necessarily playing on stream, but like when I'm playing in a tournament or when I'm playing like, with people watching, whether they're friends or whatever, and I'm like really trying to analyze and think and learn, I usually don't have music, but I would say that for probably the majority of my ladder games, I do have music on, at least, for whatever it is, there's just, I don't know, I like listening to music, so I tend to get into it, and it helps me get less frustrated when I lose, so. All right, our next question comes from Time, and they ask, is Fiora unplayable now? So
I would lean more towards yes than no.
Yeah, I think unplayable is not it. I don't think she's unplayable. I think that she is
niche.
Now going to see. Yeah, I think that she's going to be like an all-in combo card now, basically. I think that she's no longer a value mid-range card. So I think that she might be unplayable in her current form, or like maybe the Fiora Z deck or the like mono Fiora Freljord decks are where she's gonna live now, instead of Fiora Shen. But she might still exist in Fiora Shen. I just think she's much worse. What do you think, Noble? Fiora unplayable?
I don't think so. I think that these like random Freljord Fiora decks are still going to be playable at least. And, I hope she's still good in Fiora Shen. They've probably done some testing and known that she's not the worst, but she's definitely not where I'm going to start.
I agree.
Yeah, that's why I said niche.
Yeah, I agree.
Totally.
Our next question from Dr. Beeves. They ask, how many games of Deep will Hugh play before he realizes it is still bad? I think it's going to be infinite because it's not still bad.
If it ends up being bad, it will be 7.
7.
I think it'll be 7.
It'll be
yeah,
7.
I think that's about where. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Because the last time I retried Deep, when I saw the new updated Deep list that a guy like apparently like played to Masters or something, I played 4 games with it before realizing it was probably not the best ladder deck, and I think 7's a good place for this next try.
All right. Now it's time for the very important emote section of our listener questions. First up from The Rabbit Returns, they ask emote meta. What new emotes would you like to see? And do you think a disruption to Jinx's tier 0 status is likely? I will start there. Absolutely not. There is no world in which Jinx can be removed from the tier 0 emote status in my mind.
Especially if we're playing Jinx Lulu.
Yeah, she's the best emote from the base game. She's got too much history in my mind. Like they would have to change the Jinx emote. They would have to nerf it for it to be removed from tier 0 ever in my head. There's no way. It's completely immune.
I figured something out.
Jinx emote is getting retired into the emote hall.
Part of the reason I don't like the Lulu emote is because it's structurally similar to the Jinx emote and worse. Like, two arms on the face of champion, like boom, look at you.
Doing
like,
the surprise, yeah.
Yeah, which made me realize I'm just thinking about playing Lulu Jinx and, have to make some
you're gonna have
decisions.
You're going to have both in the Lulu Jinx deck.
That's fair.
No, yeah. That's absolutely.
Oh, gosh, now I have to play
Her
IRP.
arms are on a juice box, not her face.
But structurally, it looks similar. Like it's Lulu looking at you like this or Jinx looking at you like this. And you can't see my face, but it's very clear.
But he's doing the faces. What do you think, Hugh?
I don't really. I don't think it's not going to get unseated.
How about any new emotes you'd like to see? Any particular champions you think don't have a good enough emote? Honestly, I kind of want different TF emotes.
Does TF have an emote?
I don't even know if
I don't think
he doesn't. I would love that.
Yeah, how do we not have a TF emote?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
seems completely unreasonable. I want a TF emote.
Yeah, there we go. TF is a good one. I don't know that they're not all. Are all the emotes from champs we have in game?
Ooh, I think so. There are some non-champion emotes.
Yeah, there's some Yone
sure.
ones.
Yeah, there's that one winky
Yone.
one.
Yeah, there's that like Nyandroid emote that is not a champion. It's like that cat from the Catastrophe card.
Oh yeah, I meant specifically. Are there champs that are emotes?
It's only Yone.
Yeah, okay. because that's the one I was thinking of. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing off the top other than a TF emote. I can't think of any just like random things.
I kind of want a different Yasuo emote.
We need You Can't Kill Ian the Zillion.
Oh, banger. Absolutely.
We need that.
Good idea. Yeah, that's the one.
Zillion for sure.
Zillion's such a good answer. All right. Next up on the emote section of the cast, Austin Yost asks Earth emote meta implications. So this is the new emote coming. It's the Earth the Manatee emote. It's like him like flexing, basically.
It's like pretty good.
It's all right.
It's solid.
It's solid. I think it's
B
like
tier,
B, maybe A tier.
Yeah.
I was gonna say low A. I don't think
That's
it's as
kinda where I
low
agree.
as B. Like it's got
Absolutely.
because the thing about emotes is they need to be flexible. You know,
And it's literally very flexible.
yeah, like you need to have
Flexible.
it needs to have a
Just to
lot
make
of
sure you got the bad
applications.
pun, we had to really dig it in.
Yeah, unfortunately, an expensive microphone is in the way of his face. Otherwise, I just throw my phone at it. Anyway, yeah, it's
Flexible.
Very,
Yeah.
flexible
Yeah, they have to be good. This is a good emote.
because you can use Jinx emote for a lot of things.
Anything.
You can,
I stand by anything.
you can use Lulu emote for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And this one, you can use this emote for a little less things, but
think-
still a lot of things.
I think it is going to be. I think this emote might have arrived one patch too late. I think this was the perfect emote for when you spike turn 2 suit up after playing turn 1 Fizz. And I think that meta is gone, and it may have missed its emote meta where it really had a chance to be the perfect emote for something, because that used to be such a good emote when you play the turn 2 suit up off the turn 1 Fizz. It'd be so good, but I think maybe now that that's gone, maybe that'll still be a part of the meta. If it is, I think that's going to be a big part of the Earth.
If the only way this emote will rise in the meta is if we get an Earth card.
I agree. All right. Next up, Dragon asks, off the emote section now. So, how much do these changes impact the big 3 champions prior to this patch, TF Aphelios and Fiora? I mean, like, we talked a lot about this already, but I think somehow Twisted Fate is the one that got out of this the most unscathed.
Yeah, my boy got away clean.
Which I did not think was going to be true. I think Fiora got hit really hard, and I think Aphelios is bad.
Yeah,
That's fair.
He got hit the least hard.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty likely that Twisted Fate remains in the top 3 best champions in the game.
Still think that Twisted Fate got hit pretty hard with the pick a card change.
The pick a card change is much bigger than the other change. Yeah. I think that it's possible that Twisted Fate remains in the top 3 champs in the game, and I think it is very unlikely that Aphelios and Fiora will find themselves there anymore.
That makes sense, yeah.
That's where I land on this one. All right.
Lissandra is priced to move. Like, that deck not getting a nerf and being like the most played deck already. And part of that is because it was like the best deck against TF Fizz, kind of bar none. Tough Nexuses are so hard to beat, and 3/4 with tough are so hard to kill. Like, yeah.
Yep, I agree. All right. Next up, Twilight asks, what Shurima decks do you think got some leverage from the current changes? Or from the patch notes?
Sandy Scouts is definitely going to be the new aggro deck of choice, I think. Also, like, I think we just have more room for, like, random, like, Renekton, Sivir mid-range decks.
Yeah, we talked about that, like, Renekton, Shyvana thing. Like, I think there's just going to be more room for stuff like that. Sivir, I think, is another champ that's priced to move.
Yeah.
Now that there's, Fiora, there's going to be a lot less Fiora. She had a problem with that card in the past,
absolutely.
right? So, like, there's a lot of champions that I think were not that played because Fiora was, like, really eating them alive. And I think that honestly is just extended to this region of Shurima as a whole. So I actually think that the Fiora nerf is a big deal for Shurima.
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal for any deck that wants to play big, dumb things that walk on the ground instead of sneak past with elusive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was kind of a double crush where, like, you cannot play 5 mana 4/5s or 5/5s against Burblefish, and you can't play 1 mana 1/1s against Fiora. So, like, the metagame was constricted because Fiora was feasting on aggro decks in Lissandra Trundle, and Fizz was feasting on mid-range decks that, like, play big chonkers. And, like, getting out of that, like, catch 22 is going to be really big for just, like,
Deck diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think Shurima is going to be a big factor of deck diversity because there aren't that many good Shurima decks right now.
Like, big boys with Overwhelm was, like, the thing that you could do.
Yeah.
And I think it will get better. But it also just, like, died to TF Fizz a lot.
I agree. All right. Next up, this question comes from Lee McLeod. They ask, Lulu Shen to the moon? Question mark.
I'm like kind of into it.
I'm pretty in too, to be honest. I think we could swap out these Fioras for some Laurent proteges, turn them into 4/4s with Lulu.
I'm also semi interested in like this Taric Infinite thing with
Golden Aegis.
Golden Aegis.
Yeah, this sounds good too. Honestly, like I'm definitely, if somebody, I don't think I'm gonna brew the Lulu Shen deck, but if somebody put a Lulu Shen deck in the Discord, I'd play it.
Yeah. Challenge
somebody
extended.
Yeah, somebody bring me the best Lulu Shen deck and I'll play it. So, what do you think, Hugh? Lulu Shen?
No, not for me.
No, not for you. All right. Next question is from Carinal. What decks, aside from Deep Hugh, are you most excited to start playing or excited to potentially see play? For me, I'm going to try to finish a Breaking Riven. Well, good luck with that. That's been on the docket for a lot of people for a few months now.
I do think something
a little skeptical, but yeah, go ahead.
Do you think something like Riven Lee, Riven Shurima with like the exhaust stuff, like
could be all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more room for it now.
Absolutely.
And so
putting like quick attack or whatever on Renekton is like pretty good.
Yeah. So since you can't say it, Hugh, I'll say it deep. Like actually, like I'm actually quite excited for this deck. I think it's going to be really good. Like that and Lee Zoe are the two decks at the top of my list.
Shadow Assassin Piles is what my immediate thought this morning, and then my other thought that I really got on when we were talking just now is like Gangplank Dreadway. Like maybe it's great. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, you were pretty high on like various Twisted Fate Gangplank piles in the past, or like at least
I really
Gangplank
liked
piles
them,
in the past, right? Like this is a pretty big buff for those.
Yeah, like Yordle Grifter is just like a really powerful card. Black Market Merchant's like pretty good, and those are all ways to draw cards with Twisted Fate in play. Like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see how it's good.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Zoe is actually at the top of my list. Like as much as I love Deep. I'm still a Spike, so like Lee Zoe is number one, but I will be playing Deep as well.
All right, this one comes from Keon Spy. They ask, what would be the new go-to deck? This one's hard. What do you guys think the new go-to
there's an
deck?
answer to this question.
I actually do. I think it's Trundle Lissandra.
Cool.
It was the most played deck before. It was really powerful. It had been taken to a good spot, I think, by like a community getting a really good list.
Yeah.
And it didn't get touched at all, right? Like not a single card got nerfed. The rest of the world got nerfed around it. I'm pretty excited. I think that deck's probably going to be the easy go-to.
I hate those decks mirrors. They're so awful. I really just don't like playing against that deck. Like for the Magic players out here, it's really Tron. And like, it's so grindy. You get to a point where you feel like you could never win. They have Ice Charge every turn and their Nexus is tough, but they're not killing you for like 2 more turns. And you're like, guess I'll stick around.
Yeah.
And then you die.
Yeah.
Yeah. I both don't like playing it and I don't like playing against it. It's fine to exist. It doesn't seem like a problem, and I probably still won't be a problem.
I actually agree with you guys too. Is this? I guess I'm curious. I guess I would love to ask all our listeners. Like, do you guys feel the same way? That like, is this deck not fun to play and not fun to play against? If so, then the answer to this question being that deck is kind of troubling or a little worrisome.
I think Lissandra's really sweet, but I also think that the Trundle Trindamore deck was way more fun to play with and against than this one.
I agree, actually.
It was like a lot easier to beat too. Like
it was a lot worse.
Like, Deny does not do anything against Lissandra.
No,
and it was like insane against Field of Rush.
Yeah, you can't deny fading memories.
yeah, and you can't
or Ice Pillar,
Watcher, and you
can't deny anything. Yeah,
there's just nothing. Yeah.
All right. Well, and our last question for this episode comes from Tede. They ask, "Is this Zed's time to shine?"
I could see it, honestly. Like Zed maybe actually like, okay, so he's really good. Ugh.
I mean, I don't think we even mentioned Zed all episode, but like Zed is another one of those cards that's really going to benefit from a new world order. I think like Zed particularly is always a card that I think has had a niche spot in the meta and is powerful enough to see constructed play, but needs to be attacking the meta in a specific way to be good enough, usually, I think. And I think it's so hard to know whether that's going to be this meta because I have no idea what this meta is going to be. So I think it easily could be, but I think just like in the past, Zed's going to be a niche angle that you can choose to attack the meta with, and he easily could be good in this meta.
I think he probably, I agree. I mean, Cataclysm existing just makes him so much better.
My hot take is that I really hate the card.
Yeah, you're an idiot. Cataclysm's so good in that deck.
Man, that card is always bad for
I don't
me.
understand what you're doing. You cast it on Zed,
And then you
it's
lose.
good.
Every time.
What are you doing?
Your Zed dies and you lose. Every time.
How does your Zed die?
Hush. Targon decks. They affect combat. Like, I don't know. It's just single combat. Like, look, man, it just happened every time. I played it like 5 or 6 times. I played against it a bunch. Every time someone put Cataclysm on the stack, they lost the game that turn.
So Hush, your Zed was always dying. Cataclysm's not the culprit here. It
is the culprit because you're spending 3 mana and then you can't defend it.
Okay. All right. We're done here.
All right. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode of Champ Select. A lot of big changes. I'm really excited to play with all the new cards. I'm sure I speak for everyone not new cards.
How do y'all feel about the Anivia
changes?
nerfs?
The Anivia nerfs?
Yeah. Patch 0.03.
We're going all the way back.
Yeah. I picked up Anivia used to do some wild crap. She used to be a 4/3. She used to cost 6 mana. She couldn't block. She died into Agnivia, and then Agnivia, start of round, turned into her, even if you weren't enlightened.
Weird.
Yeah. And leveled up. It was all very weird.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive.
The front side of Anivia was a 5. The back side was like a 5/4. Like, my God, man.
Huge.
Weird stuff.
All right.
Tryndamere used to have tough when he was on the transform side. Lots of weird stuff. Vladimir was even worse.
Vladimir was.
He didn't count himself. He just didn't count himself for the surviving damage.
No. All right. So thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of Champ Select. We want to thank everyone who entered our giveaway, and we'll be reaching out to the winners of our giveaway very soon. So thank you to everyone who was part of the giveaway. If you aren't part of our Discord yet, it's too late to join the giveaway, but it's not too late to enter part of the fun and hear all the sweet brews that people are going to be playing and all the good decks and everything. So make sure you join our Discord. The link for that will be in the description. And I think we'll see you all. Oh, yeah.
On that note, I just want to say, having this Discord being such an active, awesome community has made every patch day, every release day so much more fun.
Oh, yeah.
So awesome. Tons of brewing. Great talking to all of you. So, that's just another huge reason to join. We got some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, you should definitely join if you aren't already. It's a great, it's the hub for competitive Legends of Runeterra as far as I'm concerned. So it's much better than the subreddit.
Yeah.
I unironically, I'm clearly a biased source here, but I actively think that our Discord is generally providing much better input on things than the LOR competitive subreddit is even, or anything like that. So, anyways, thank you all for watching, and we will see you all on the next episode of Champ Select.